It's my very great pleasure to bring back two of our recent graduates and two of our first group of graduating broadcast journalists. You can see there was only 6 of them, but they're our first year. And Karen is in the middle, and Charlotte 2 over, you can see there. And very proud parents, which are not to see our graduating class. Anyways, 3 of them, and these 2 included, already had jobs before they graduated, before this day. Karen was already working freelance shifts as a broadcast journalist at Star Radio, and Charlotte was already working broadcast shifts at BBC Radio Leeds. And they're still doing that now, a few months on, and so I thought you'd like to hear how they managed to do that so soon to graduating. So welcome, Karen and Charlotte.
I don't actually know how to start. Okay, so basically how I started off was, obviously I was still at uni, and Louise Fuster, who's my editor, and John Clayton, who's the managing director of Star, came into university because of Richard, and Richard introduced me to them. And because I'm from Newcastle and they're based in Darlington, kind of thought it was kind of good to kind of introduce me because it's kind of like the northeast, and they're based in the northeast as well. So it's like convenient for me to kind of work there. So basically after that, I kept in contact with them, and I think keeping in contact with whoever you meet is crucial because obviously you can get a potential job there or like work experience. So I kept in contact with Louise, and I started off getting like work experience there first. I think back in like December, and then eventually she took me into like a room and was like, I've got a week of paid shifts for you if you want to take it. So I was like, yeah, of course. And then that's kind of how I started to kind of get more shifts in as a freelancer. And they use Burley, which you learn here. So when I started, I didn't need to learn kind of like how to use Burley because I already got taught here. And the only kind of thing that I kind of needed to adjust to was the way that the station kind of worked, kind of like how they do their ins and outs, kind of like, and how they have jingles in between like the bulletin, and when you do the demo bulletins here and the live bulletins, you don't really have a jingle, so I kind of had to adjust to that. And I guess the skills that you learn here is kind of, you use it when you go for a job because obviously you learn how to report, find stories, you get given a story, so then you have to arrange interviews, do the interviews, cut and cue, write scripts. So like a normal day for me is I would get in for 10 and I finish at 6. But from 10 until 2, I get given about 3 stories to work on. So I have to arrange interviews for all 3 stories, write 4 scripts for them, obviously do the interviews and then cut them all and then attach the audios to them. And then at 2, that's when I read the news. So as well as doing the interviews, and then like writing all the scripts, I also have to do my hourly bulletins, so I have to put my bulletins together as well. And like no day is the same. Every day is just completely different, and that's what you get taught here as well. Because I'm sure like if you've done like bulletins and stuff already, you can see that no day is the same. And because I'm doing the afternoon shift, I'm basically on my own from 2 until 6 because the morning person who does the morning bulletins goes home. So basically, I'm in charge from 2 until 6. And when I started, I got thrown into the deep end because obviously I'm on my own. And I obviously don't have enough, I don't have as much experience as like Louise or Ellie. So it was kind of interesting to kind of make decisions that I thought was right. So kind of, what should I lead with? Should I lead with a national story or a local story? And you learn all these skills here at uni because obviously you get put into roles. So like when Richard, when you do like the live bulletins for BCB, you get put as like an editor one day and then like the newsreader the next. So I think that the skills that you pick up here is vital, and like you can use it to really transfer to whatever job or work experience that you have. I've got an example of like a bulletin that I did back in September. Just kind of show you like.
2 o'clock, let's get the latest with Karen Lou.
Good afternoon. A teenager who got into trouble on a dinghy off the coast of Tyne and Wear has died. The 17-year-old boy was pulled from the sea near the mouth of the River Wear yesterday evening and taken to hospital but couldn't be saved. 3 others were with him but they're not in a critical condition. Alex Richards is from the local RNLI and says there was a major effort to try and save him.
The helicopters and Coast Guard and a number of agencies involved in the search itself. The helicopter actually spotted a person in the water, and the lifeguards and the lifeboat helped recover the individual, and the helicopter assisted with the transfer to the hospital.
More than £11,000 has been raised for the family of a British man who died after trying to save a fellow backpacker. Tom Jackson passed away in hospital yesterday, a week after trying to stop an attacker stabbing Mia Aycliffe-Chung to death in Australia. Mia's mum, Rosie Aycliffe, describes the moment 2 police officers came to tell her the news.
I thought I'd done something that I shouldn't have done, and I was really quite nervous. And then they said that there was no easy way of telling me and that Mia had been fatally wounded. I think at that was when I went into a shock that I didn't come out of for quite a long time.
Theresa May has ruled out a second referendum on the UK's withdrawal from the EU, once again insisting Brexit means Brexit. The Prime Minister made the comments as she met her cabinet for the first time since their summer break. She also insisted there will be no attempt to stay in the EU by the back door. A female driver has been seriously hurt after a crash between a car and a bus on the outskirts of Seaham. It happened last Tuesday afternoon, involving a 30-seater Go North East bus and a white Hyundai i10 on the A182. Louise Fuster's got more for Star Radio.
The car driver, a 35-year-old woman from Seaham, remains in James Cook Hospital in Middlesbrough with serious injuries which aren't life-threatening. After studying footage recorded on the bus's CCTV cameras, investigators say they are keen to trace one vital witness. It's after one image clearly shows a silver 5-door Vauxhall Corsa parked at the roadside, almost directly opposite where the crash happened. Other footage suggests he may have stopped at that location to release some racing pigeons. Police are stressing there's no suggestion he was involved in any way, but he might be able to help with their inquiries.
The government has condemned potential plans for more strike action by junior doctors in England. Leaders of the British Medical Association are meeting today and are reportedly considering 5-day-long walkouts every month for the rest of the year. A spokesperson from the Department of Health accused them of playing politics, saying strikes would be immensely damaging for vulnerable patients. And the Military Wives Choir looks set to perform at Durham Cathedral in November. It's part of their 7-day Home for Christmas tour. Tickets go on sale from this Friday. There's more on all our stories, including a fall in the number of frontline prison officers at County Durham jails, on our website starradio.co.uk.
Star Radio.
Then I say the weather after this, and I don't think you want to hear the weather. That's also something that I got introduced to, was that I got told that I had to do the weather after the news, and I didn't get told how to do the weather here. So that was a bit interesting. It was kind of weird because I thought, like, I'm kind of like a weather person as well as the news. At 4:30 and 5:30 p.m, I do the heads. So it's literally a 1-minute straight read of all the stories that I've ran throughout the day. And then 1.5 minutes of sport. I think the sport ones are probably the ones that I struggled with the most, but mainly because of the pronunciations of like some of the players, which I completely struggled with and probably messed up. I think one thing that I need to improve on, and I think it's kind of good to kind of have weaknesses, because then you can work on that and make them into your strength, is just my pronunciation. Like, I pronounce place names wrong as well, live on air. And then I get told by Tim, who's the Drive presenter, oh, it's actually pronounced this. There was a time when I said a band name wrong in one of my bulletins. Pardon? Yeah, I said a band name wrong. I can't remember. What was it? Oh, it was Bros. I said Bros. And then after I did the weather, I was still live because Tim left my mic up. And he was like, and then he started talking about that band, and then he emphasized that it was pronounced Bros. So then we kind of just laughed about it, and he mentioned about how like how I wasn't like born when they were, when they were like still gigging and stuff. So that was like the excuse that we used about why I pronounced it wrong. So that was interesting.
Do you write all your own bulletins?
Yeah. So you can so basically, let's say I'm in for a Monday, I get given stories to work on for Tuesday or Wednesday. So then obviously when you're in that next day, you can use your own bulletins. You can use your own scripts that you've written to put into the bulletin. And I got told that even if like Louise wrote her own scripts, you can edit it to the way that you feel comfortable reading it. So for me, I still edit each of my scripts. Instead of writing S-A-Y-S for says, I would write it as S-E-S for says, because I would say says, but on radio you should say says. So that kind of helps me to kind of remember and kind of read out that it says. And I do that for like long words as well. So like one of them was osteoporosis, when talking about the meningitis jab for freshers. And I think you also need to be kind of on the ball when you're working in the industry, because if breaking news comes in as well, you have to think about what will you do with that information that you've just got given. So it could be like a line. So I remember this one time, just before my 6 o'clock bulletin, breaking news came in that there was a fire broke out in Darlington Town Centre, and I literally just had that one line to go with. So I rang the fire and rescue service, nobody picked up. So I thought, damn, what am I supposed to do? So I thought, okay, I'll just write. So I thought I would lead with that and say that there's a fire in Darlington Town Centre, but keep following us on like Twitter, Facebook, and we'll keep you updated. That's literally all I had to go for, because there was no more information that I had. And then I think it was about 5 to 6, and people tweeted into us with pictures and more information about the actual location of the fire. So I had to quickly edit that and put that in. There was something that I remembered to say about it. I've forgotten it now.
Do you want me to start now?
Yeah.
Okay. I just said, you can do a great job. So basically, I'm a broadcast assistant at BBC Radio Leeds freelance.
which is basically, it's kind of like on Breakfast, it's basically an assistant producer job. Then I also work on the mid-morning programme and the lunch programme, and when I do that I am just the sole producer on the shows, which is a little bit scary, but really fun. So basically how I got the job was I did work experience in my final year here at Leeds Trinity. I did 2 weeks at Radio Leeds and then 2 weeks at Look North. And I remember basically on my first day, I went in and the first thing that it was Richard Edwards, who was our acting news ed for the day, made me do was say, oh, first of all, can you just pick up the phone and ring this person, do it, and basically book them for an interview. Now straight away that absolutely frightened me to death because I was never good on the phone. But one thing that it has, what I've learned is that basically you just get better whatever you do at practicing. So constantly now, if you ever need to do phone interviews and stuff, make sure you do it. Don't go, oh, I'll just drop them an email or anything like that. You need to make sure you pick up the phone and speak to people, which is obviously quite a big thing in radio because we've had plenty of times where no one's actually spoken to the person who's coming on to do the interview, and then they get on air and they just crap, they just can't speak, and obviously that's not good. So one thing is make sure kind of when you're here, you do, if anyone says book someone for an interview, I'll go, oh yeah, I'll just send them an email, or I couldn't get through to them on the phone. Make sure you actually do speak to people. So basically I did that, thought, boom, straight in, done that. Then I remember on my second day, there was the Canadian Rugby Union team were in Leeds because it was during the World Cup. And I basically was like, oh yeah, I love rugby union. Blatant lie. I love rugby union, know everything about it. So straight away they were like, oh, why don't you go interview them? Great. So I literally had about 10 minutes and was like, let's quickly get Googling who the Canadian Rugby Union team are. So I did that, went out, interviewed them. That ended up going on air, which was really cool. So also one thing I'd say is, I'm not saying lie, I'm not advocating lying, I'm just saying kind of maybe big up what you can do, even if you actually can't, and then just make sure you research really quickly. That's a good tip. So I did that basically, so that was kind of my 2 weeks at Radio Leeds. Also one of the big things that I said was, I was like, oh, please can I come in on a breakfast shift and shadow what they do in ops when they're producing, which meant that you had to be in 5 o'clock in the morning, which I was like, okay, cool, I can do that. Got in, and I shadowed, and that was basically the first time I'd ever shadowed any producer shift or done anything kind of related to producing. So I did that, and I made sure I asked questions. Now, I think I was probably bugging them quite a lot, asking loads and loads and loads of questions, but I've since found out that when I've been in and people have been coming in and doing work experience, they just sit there and don't say anything, and it's really awkward. And then obviously then they go, oh, we'd love to come in and do these producer shifts. It's like, well, if you can't ask a question, that's just not going to happen. So basically one tip as well that I would say is make sure whenever you go anywhere and do anything, you ask questions. You don't just sit there, even if you think it's a stupid question. I went in and I was like, this basically looks like a blooming spaceship. I was like, this is just ridiculous. How can someone go in and not ask anything? So make sure you ask any question you possibly can, and at least, even if you're not interested, you sound interested, and you sound like you know what you're doing, or you sound like you actually want to find out more. So basically, so that was my 2 weeks of Radio Leeds, and then I moved on to Look North and did 2 weeks there. And then when I was there, I went out and did filming with the reporters and stuff, but I kind of realised then that it was radio that I wanted to do, not TV. Sorry, Catherine. So basically that's, so I was like, yes, radio, exactly. So then when I did that, basically after my 4 weeks, I then went back to radio, to the news editor, and I was like, look, I just want to say I've really, really enjoyed my time here at Radio Leeds. I'd love to come in and kind of do some more shadowing or do some more work experience. Yeah, of course, brilliant. Took down her email address, contact details. Next week, sent her an email. Next week, sent her an email. Next week, sent her an email. She never got back to me. Tried ringing her. Nope, didn't get back to me. I was like, oh, okay, damn, this isn't going to work. But I made sure I kept trying and kept being persistent. Then I think it was just after Christmas, I got a text out of the blue from Kim, who was one of the producers on Breakfast. And she was, oh, Charlotte, we've got some shadowing shifts coming up on producing on Breakfast. Would you like to come in? Absolutely brilliant. Went in, I did 2 days shadowing, and then the day after, Kim, who was working there, she was ill. So I got a phone call to say, actually, Charlotte, can you come in and do it, and we'll pay you? I was like, oh my God, brilliant, absolutely, we'll come in and get paid. And then from then on, I was like, oh, there was another one. I was like, yeah, I'll do that. I was like, okay, great, can I get a BBC pass? Because that's what I really, really wanted. I ended up getting one. Oh, it was like Christmas Day, get in. So I got a BBC pass, and then ever since then, they kept asking me, oh, can you come in and do a shift? Can you come in and do a shift? So I was just down to kind of doing maybe one every 2 weeks, so it wasn't often at all, but I was like, absolutely, we'll take that. Then I said, when I've been doing that a while, I was like, oh, I'd really like to do the mid-morning show. So I asked one of their producers, oh, can I do some shadowing with you guys? Obviously not paid, yeah, brilliant. I did 2 days on that, And then they said, oh, we've got a full week coming up. So there's 3 producers. There's 2 producers, so one does 2 days a week, one does 3 days a week, and the other does planning. So I was like, oh, it'll be fine. And they were like, oh, can you come in and do a full week producing? Absolutely brilliant. It turned out that week they were all on holiday because it was half term. So it was literally just me and the presenter. So straight away that absolutely threw me in the deep end. I was like, right, I can do this, let's just blag my way through. Ended up doing it and it went really, really well. So then I started then getting asked to do more mid-morning shifts. Then I was like, oh, let's do lunch. So again, I did the same thing. I was like, oh, I'll do that. I can do this. So basically from then, I've been given all these shifts and now I've been doing, for the past 3 months, I've done at least 2 days a week producing mid-morning, as well as kind of any other shift. And for the next 6 weeks, I think I'm in at least 5 days a week. So it's 40-hour weeks. It's practically full-time. Now, I am still freelance. I don't have a contract. But I do go in, and whenever anyone asks me to do any shift possible, yes. That's one thing. You have to make sure you say yes to everything. Don't go, nah, I'm not interested in sports, I don't want to do it. No, you say yes. Or I don't want to be up at 4 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock in the morning. Yes, you do, because that's how you get it. Because if I didn't say, oh, I'll get up at 4 o'clock, come in for 5 and do that first shadowing shift, I never would have got any of this. So you have to make sure you show that you're keen and willing, and make sure that you actually, say I'll do that. So that's basically where I'm up to now. I also work on sport, basically desk driving, which I still don't really know what that is. It's just basically where they're, see, Bex don't know either, Sam does. If you ever want to know anything about sport, ask those guys. So basically, so you go out and they're out on location doing the commentary, and you're basically sat in the studio, pressing the buttons, making sure they're on air. And it always goes right, doesn't it, Sam? Yeah. Always. Never make any mistakes. If you do, you just blag your way through it. They're like, yes, that was meant to happen. So that's also one thing. Make sure you're good at blagging. Be like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, when you really don't. So that's basically the things that I do. Another big part of kind of the big story that I worked on this year was the Jo Cox, basically when she was killed. So on that day, I wasn't at work. I'd worked on the breakfast shift, I'd gone home, and then I got a phone call in the afternoon to say, because I was working on the breakfast shift the day after, being like, oh, we've decided to do an outside broadcast from, it was Birstall. The day after, can you come in? So basically got into the studio, got in at 4 o'clock, then went straight to location, and I basically kind of was on location producing that. Now that was the most bizarre thing I have ever kind of been involved in. There was all these camera crews, I've never seen that many. And it was basically just the day after, it was awful. But it was one of those things where you kind of had to be on the ball. So my presenter basically, she had bits of scripts that had been written for the day before, but we basically had 3 hours to fill. So kind of anyone who was around, my job was just to go over, grab them, kind of speak to them, and bring them over and basically get them to speak to our presenter Liz. And that was, it was such a weird experience. And it's something that obviously you don't really learn when you're at uni, you just kind of have to pick it up and do it. So I did that, and then as soon as I got home, I got a phone call to say, oh, we're going to do a live broadcast from Westminster on Monday. Do you want to go and basically produce that? I was like, okay. So went down on the Sunday, then I was up at 3 o'clock the next day, writing the scripts, printing them out. Then we got on location, and basically again, we did 3 hours of basically kind of telling the story of what had happened. And we also, one thing that you do have to do on outside broadcast is basically make sure that your presenter kind of doesn't have anything else to deal with apart from what they're actually talking about. So one thing that we had was ABC News was there because it was the week of the referendum. So there was all these, we had Chinese, Japanese, Americans, basically every kind of news outlet was there. ABC News was there. This woman came marching over to me. She was like, excuse me, you're not allowed to be there. I was like, okay, yes we are. She was like, no, you've got to move, we're TV, so, we're important, we're American. Okay. So I was like, all right, that's just not happening. They were like, no, you need to move, basically, kind of, you're in our shot, you're only local radio. Oof, that really annoyed me. I was like, all right, love, calm down. So I was there, like, so this was kind of my first thing where I was like, right, you know what, I'm producer, I'm in charge, this is what I'm doing. So I basically turned around to her and I was like, look, love, maybe not, maybe look, love. Maybe a little bit nicer than that. I was like, look, this is what we're doing. We're on air till 9 o'clock. I think it was about 7:15. I was like, we're on air till 9 o'clock. We are not moving, because basically if we move, we go off air. So then that's just not happening. So I basically was having a standoff with this woman, being like, look, And in the end, we ended up, I basically said, you know, this is as soon as I said, you know, this is our local MP, oh, she backed down then. I was like, yeah, you have to. So we're basically like, look, this is what we're doing, we're not moving. And that was one thing where I thought, you know what, no, as a producer, and this is a big thing, as a producer, you're the person out on location, you need to make sure your presenter basically doesn't have anything else to worry about and they're just focusing on their job. So you have to make sure you're not there just as, because this was while I was still at uni, so I'm basically still, I'm a trainee. I haven't done that many shifts, but I thought, no, I'm not looking at myself as that, I'm looking at myself as someone who's paid. I'm here, I work for BBC and I'm a producer, so this is what's happening. And that's basically what you have to do. You can't just go, even now when you're all saying, oh, I'm a trainee. No, you're not, you're all journalists. You're the person who, you're in charge. If something goes wrong at the end of the day, if we'd have gone off air and I'd have gone, you know what, yeah, absolutely, you're completely right, we'd have gone off air and I probably wouldn't have a job anymore. So it'd be kind of, you have to make sure you're the person who's in charge and make sure that you're confident and even if you don't, again, know what you're doing, you have to pretend that you are and be confident. So we did that. And there was also another incident where I think it was a week after, I was back out in Birth, so we kind of did a week kind of after what had happened. And again, this very scary man came over to us and basically was like, look, you're not allowed in Birth, kind of, we're all sick of you, we're sick of the media, we don't really want you guys here. And I've said that in a really nice way. He didn't say that in a nice way. There's a lot of expletives and he was very up in my face. And basically my job was, again, I was like, I need to protect my presenter. My presenter is live on air. I cannot have this guy coming up to her and basically swearing and shouting the odds. I have to make sure to get him away. So one thing as well you do need to make sure you're safe when you're out on location and don't put yourself in a vulnerable position, which is probably what I did and I shouldn't have done. But you have to, as well, you do have to get the balance of making sure you're in charge and you know what you're doing and you're protecting your presenter, but also make sure that you're safe. So I've done the things I've done. I also worked on the morning after the referendum. I went in for the breakfast shift. Obviously, I think like everybody, assuming that we'd stay in, it'd be a dead easy breakfast show. You know, we all knew exactly what we were doing. Walked into the office and we were like, what's happened? So basically then you had to change the entire breakfast show, which is the first time I've ever had to do anything like that. It wasn't just me, it was me and another producer. And we ended up doing that, thought, right, got to about 7:30, we were like, we're fine, nailed it. Then obviously Cameron comes out, doesn't he? Oh, I'm going to resign. Oh, God, what are you doing, man? So then constantly then you always have to be like, right, this is what we're going to do. So again, and then people kept coming in and saying, what's happening? We're like, right, look, this is what we're doing. I'm ringing these MPs, he's ringing these MPs, and you have to make sure again that even because you're working it's a big newsroom, again you have to make sure only certain people are doing certain things. So obviously if I rang one MP, it's not good, is it, if someone else in the newsroom rang them and blah, blah, blah. So also make sure kind of whenever you do anything, make sure you talk to, if you're working in a team, make sure you work in your team and say, this is what I'm doing, kind of make sure you're not, and make someone kind of take charge and say, this is what we're doing. So that's another thing that I've worked on. I think that's about it. I think I can think of anything else to say.
Got any advice?
Any advice?
If you could go back to your first year, second year, anything
Start-
you would have done differently?
Start everything a lot earlier than what you actually did.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I've got 3 weeks, that'll be fine. And then you get to the day before.
Yeah,
You're like, oh, no.
literally don't procrastinate.
Yeah,
Because we're speaking from experience here, especially me. I'm surprised I got a first, to be honest. Like,
nice one, Cal. Drop that in. I got a first.
So did you?
Yeah, true, I did.
She even got that award certificate thing.
Well, I didn't want to brag, but...
Yeah, but literally don't procrastinate. But my favourite times here were like when all 6 of us were doing like the production. So like when we had to put together like our 40-minute like live streamed TV or do like the hour-long live programs with Richard. That's what I found most enjoyable. Yeah, it was stressful, but you learn a lot from that. And I think just after you've done them all, it's just really rewarding because you just feel like you've accomplished something.
One thing I'd also say is, how many of you here like shorthand? Oh, there's some people. Do you all think shorthand's important? Yeah? Because for me, it really is. I think shorthand is really, really important. And is it getting scrapped or something next year? Or? It's just rubbish. No, you should do shorthand. This is one of my big things that I've always said. when I did shorthand here, I hated it. But you get used to it, and you do your speed and you're fat, and honestly, you'll get to it, guys. You'll do it. And I think when you do it, it's really, really important, even because everyone's like, oh, you don't need it in broadcast. Yes, you do. So even when you're on the phone to someone, or someone's reading your commentary back for a script the next day, and you write really fast, and then it takes you 40 minutes to transcribe it back, it's still important. You still have to do it. And that's one of my big things that I would say. I don't know if you found the same thing with shorthand. You hated it, didn't you? Absolutely hated it.
I absolutely hated it. I think we needed to get I can't remember what speed it was to pass, but I just passed my shorthand. But I still use it when I work. Yeah, it might not be, as fast, or like I might write some words in longhand, but I still use shorthand though. So I think even if you think that you might not use it, I think it's still a useful skill to have. I even do like my shopping list in shorthand. Like,
well, you're keen.
No, look, it's good to keep,
It
knowledge
is though,
fresh.
because also when you do wherever you work, if you do say that you can do shorthand, they do take that as one thing of, wow, you've shown that you're dedicated, and because it is a lot of hard work, it is, but when you get it, it's really good. Definitely do it. That's one of my big things.
Yeah, we're doing our first live BCB programme next week, and I've got various second years at the moment who are a little bit disheartened because they're not being knocked back. People aren't talking to them when they're going and doing vox pops, or interviews are not coming in as they would like, and there's a degree. I've got an inbox full of emails I've got to deal with when this talk's over now. What would you say to people who are coming up to that first live programme now?
I'd basically just say just got to keep going. It will all come together. It will. We had the thing of, I think maybe on the morning we still had like I think we still had like 10 minutes or something to fill. We're like, oh god. But you have to make sure you're persistent. And if people say no, I don't want to do the interview, ask them again. If not, in fact, you can find someone else. But again, like with Vox Pops, because you really struggled, didn't you, the first time?
Yeah. It was in Bradford, because Richard makes you go to Bradford.
Richard loves Bradford.
Yeah. And we were all there, and we had to get Vox Pops, and I broke down crying in front of Richard because I just couldn't get any boxes. Nobody would speak to me. But then I kind of just realised that you just have to take no for an answer. And if you take no for an answer, just move on and find somebody else. Just keep asking, because eventually someone will talk to you. I think that's something.
And make sure you smile when you ask them, because if you look really happy, they come up to you and think, oh, what are you doing? And you just whap out your microphone and be like, answer this question for me. That's what I do. Does help though when you've got a BBC thing. Yeah. But that is boxes. The first time I had to do them, absolutely scared to death. I was like, why do you want me to go out and ask these random people this random off-the-cuff question? But then you go and do it, and it's amazing actually how different people's answers and stuff. But also what I found is with work and stuff, we do constantly, they go, oh, Charlotte, can you go out and do some boxes? Or they do constantly, it's actually quite important, boxes, which you probably found as well, with stories. So it is, you just basically just go out and ask as many people as you possibly can, because you find when you go back, you think you've got 10, and then you're like, oh, I didn't press record on about 5 of them. So make sure that you ask, look, if Richard says go out and get 6, no, go out and get 16. And you go, no, I don't need to, but you really do. But I do think boxes and stuff are important. But again, with your live programme, I don't know who of you are doing it, basically when you do it, it's really fun. When you get to the end of it, you feel such a sense of accomplishment, don't you? Being like, yes, I did that. And you feel proud, don't you, of what you've done?
Yeah, because it's literally a team effort.
Yeah.
So, I think we did group hugs.
Oh, yeah.
We did group hugs. And, when we were stressed out, we would just kind of rant to each other, and then we'd just be like, it's all right.
Yeah, suck it up. Yeah. Let's do it again.
I think you get nervous when you start doing it, but once you get into it, it's okay. and I think it's okay to kind of stumble a little, because I still do that when I'm reading bulletins, but I just carry on, because I kind of think like where we're at, you know, like not having as much experience as like, you know, like people who have been in the industry
Everyone
for so
else.
long, yeah, as everyone else. I think stumbles are completely fine. Like, even when I'm on air with my pronunciations, I stumble a lot.
Yeah. So it don't really, basically just enjoy it. That'd be my piece of advice when you do a programme, just enjoy it. It is scary, but it's totally worth it when you do it.
Questions?
What story have you worked on either in uni or in work that you've been most proud of?
Oh, that's such a good question. Shall I go first?
Yeah.
It was basically when I think it was while I was doing work experience at Radio Leeds, I found a story. It was about the rise of legal highs in Bradford. And it was basically, I went out, I was working with a woman called Jenny Ells who works at Radio Leeds, and I went out and did 2 days with her and basically did a story about the rise of legal highs. Now I thought it was quite a good story. We'll go out, interview some people, get some information. I ended up contacting, I found it was an FOI request. Basically I was just trawling through the website and we found one where basically it was I can't remember what the stat was, but it was basically this really good stat. And I was like, oh, this is brilliant. So I found that basically the top line and thought, this is a really good story. So I ended up pitching it the next day to the breakfast team, and they really liked it, and we ended up doing that as our lead story on the breakfast show. And that was basically, so then I had to, when you do that, you have to go up and set 2 interviews up, which are basically done live on the radio, as well as getting audio and stuff like that. So I'd say that for me, because that was the first story which I'd been out, worked on. I mean, I didn't work on it entirely by myself, it was me and one other person. But for me, I thought that's the first one where I've actually been out, done that, and it was actually went out on the radio, and I was like, wow, I did that. I think that was the first time where as well, when I was at work, they thought, oh, this person actually might know what she's doing. She might not always be blogging, so she might actually know what she's doing. So I'd say that would be the story that I'm most proud of.
And that the national news only picked up on it after.
That is true. Also, it did go out, it went out on Look North, I think, the day after, and then about a week later, National News picked it up. It wasn't my actual kind of my case study, but it was the story that I'd worked on, so we ended up getting it a week earlier than everyone else. Oh, you could shout that. Yeah, that's why I'm proud of it as well. Oh, thank you. I forgot about that little detail.
I think for mine, oh god, I think it was. I think I was due to do my 2 o'clock bulletin, and an important thing as well is to keep an eye on social media and follow the police of your local area, of wherever you're covering, like the council, because they'll probably update their social media first. So then that's when you can pick up on stories. So one of them that I worked on was that there was an armed robbery in Hordern in East Durham. The police wrote on their Facebook literally probably about 2 sentences, and that was what me and Louise had to go on. But I had to do a voicer for that, so I had to write a voicer as well as the cue for it. I think and then they released like a press release with more details, probably about like 20 minutes after. So then I had to kind of go through it and kind of pick the most important details for a voicer, for Louise to kind of read. So I guess I was proud of that because I was in charge of that story. I found it, I informed Louise, and she approved of what I wrote for her, and then she recorded it, and then I literally led with it and played it straight on air at 2 o'clock. So I think that's why you need to be on the ball as well, because you have to quickly produce like a voicer or like a copy on it. And I think another one as well, I don't know if it's really a story, but like I did coverage for the EU referendum. I did an all-nighter for the Richmondshire count, and it was nerve-wracking because I was live on air, because because I had to give a report, and I was on my own, and you had to kind of stay up all night, proper tired, waiting for these people to count to see if Richmond Show wanted to be in or out. But then I kind of felt like, because I had no idea what I was going to say, but I kind of thought, okay, I need to kind of inform them about what's happening at the moment, because I had to kind of give what was happening, like what I could see happening. So I was live like throughout sometimes at the night. But I don't really think that's a story, but I just remembered that. So just mention
It's a
it.
good story to tell, Karen.
Yeah.
Any other questions?
How did you calm down that guy who privilege when you went back to the
To be honest, again, it was kind of like producer mode somehow kicked in, because I'm pretty. I get really scared, and I was like, oh my god, he's gonna kill me. But I was just kind of like, oh, this is one of them things where I don't know what to do. But literally, I was like, no, this is. I know what happened. So I spoke to him, kind of tried to be calm. That wasn't really working. Kind of calmed him down. I think he walked off, so I thought, oh, we're all fine here. Then I ended up he was just kind of stood in a corner staring. I was like, what is this guy doing? Like, you're just making my life, it's just not good. And then one of our reporters went away to go and do a live piece, and she was walking towards him and was kind of stood there. He started walking over. So again, I was like, right, so I spoke to my presenter when she was off there, and I was like, are you okay if I stay there? If you stay there, and I'll go kind of protect this reporter, yeah. So I went over, and a policeman was there. And then he came marching over to the policeman and was like, this woman is like harassing all these people here in our area, and we don't like it. And I was like, okay, first of all, it's a lie. And second of all, it's not what's happening. We haven't done anything, like basically we didn't do anything wrong. That was my point. I was like, we haven't done anything wrong. We just stood here broadcasting. I said, we're not, breaking any laws. We're not doing anything. We're not pestering these people. So I basically just spoke calmly to this policeman and was like, look, this is what's happening. We haven't done anything. And he eventually, kind of the policeman spoke to him and said, yeah, they're not doing anything wrong, kind of back down. And he just ended up walking away, and that was fine. And then he did turn to me and was like, do you work for a Daily Lead? I said, yeah. He went, can I just say your coverage of everything that's happened with Joe Cox has been really good? And I was like, thanks, did you hear that? And obviously I didn't say that to him because I was scared. But I was like, look, this so it basically does show that what we were doing an important job. We weren't just kind of stood there trying to make this guy's life a misery, because that was not my goal at all. But so basically I stayed calm, which I think is important, but also I made sure sound authoritative and sound like you know what you're doing, and that was basically what I did. But obviously, you shouldn't be in that situation anyway. But if you do find yourself in it, you do have to kind of remember, first of all, make sure you're safe and all that. But kind of stay calm but sounds like you know what you're talking about, even if you don't. Any more questions? Yeah.
You said earlier about how your show prepared for the eve referendum if we stayed in. Do you think that was a bit naive from you for not
Yes.
for the other outcome?
Yes, absolutely. But I think it was just one of them things where everyone thought the same thing. I think there were some plans in place for basically if we did vote out, but it was the fact that during the night and the day before, everyone just thought, this is what's going to happen. So yeah, it probably was naive. But then again, that's what happens. You have to then prepare things really quickly, because it's like any day really. You can have your show completely planned and you know exactly what you're doing, and then something will happen at 6 o'clock in the morning and you just have to change everything. So you do have to be really, adapt to everything and make sure you think, right, we'll scrap this and we'll do something else. But when you do ever scrap something, one thing you do is make sure you ring the person who you're basically not going to be interviewed, because there's been times where they come in expecting to be interviewed, or they're on the phone and basically they're not, because you haven't had the time to ring them and say, oh, I've got to stand you down. So one thing is, make sure you know what you're doing, make sure you know kind of what you're doing in your new show and what you were doing in your old show, so that you can basically put in a contingency plan and think, oh, we'll just interview them tomorrow or something like that. But yeah, it probably was.
Any other questions?
What are the? Oh my god! Oh yay!
Join me in thanking
No.
going to be joined by Jules Matson next, so stay tuned. Jules, right there, guys.